What I'm about to show you is a self inflicted public humiliation, the likes of which you have never seen, courtesy of former Fox News host and current Trump nominee for Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, who sent his own mother to his former employers at the Fox Propaganda Network to publicly beg Donald Trump and the American people to support his nomination despite his many public scandals, one of which involves his own mother. This anti woke crusader, manly man, alpha man just ran to his mother and is having her beg for his job. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, just full disclosure, today is probably going to be a day of multiple Pete Hegseth stories because there's a lot to talk about. But I would be remiss if we didn't start with this. Penelope Hegseth, Pete Hegseth's mom, Hegseth being 44 years old, a decorated combat veteran, and again, a nominee to be the Defense Secretary of the United States, sent his mother to Fox News to beg for his job. And we're going to play some of these clips.
But we are broken by your behavior and your lack of character. When you wrote that, what's the backstory? What was going on that made you so angry you wanted to write that?
Well, I will tell that story in a moment, but let me make two statements first, and one is to President Trump. And I want to say thank you for your belief in my son. We all believe in him. We really believe that he is not that man he was 7 years ago. I'm not that mother. And I hope people will hear that story today and the truth of that story. So the other thing I want to say is I am here to tell the truth. To tell the truth to the American people and tell the truth to the senators on the Hill. Right. Especially our female senators. I really hope that you will not listen to the media and that you will listen to Pete.
Well, you.
So, for context, Steve Ducey, the host here, is referencing an email from Penelope Hegseth, the woman in the chair, Pete Hegseth's mother, to Pete Hegseth from a few years ago during a contentious divorce in which he referred to her own son as an abuser of women. She excoriated him and his moral transgressions and failures for multiple paragraphs. The New York Times got a hold of the email and published it. Now, you can critique that all you want, Penelope, but you were the one who wrote the damn words about your own son to try to spin this as the media. Well, no, the substance of the message came from you. And again, just note the begging. The first message is for President Trump. Please, thank you, for nominating Pete, and women who are in the United States Senate, don't listen to the media, or my own words, listen to Pete, the man who has been credibly accused of sexual misconduct and various other improprieties. This isn't going well. Here's another clip.
It was a difficult time. I want to say something about the media. And part of today is to discredit the media and how they operate. When they contact you, I let a few phone calls go, but then they call you and say they threaten you. That's the first thing they do. Right. They say, unless you make a statement, we will publish it as is. And I think that's a despicable way to treat anyone. Threats are dangerous, and they're hard on families.
So, a couple of things. The media writing a story of public interest and going to people involved in that story and saying, hey, listen, this is going to be published as is, but we will offer you the opportunity to comment on the story. That is standard media practice. That's not a threat. That's not particularly ruthless. The Fox Propaganda Network, the network she is sitting on literally as she is excoriating the media, they employ this practice too. They write stories, whether or not the subjects or the main characters in the story want them to or not, and they will publish that story regardless of what the subject of the story has to say. So again, standard media practice. And I like how she gives the game away. Part of this is to discredit the media. There's probably a Freudian slip, but it's true. She's trying to turn attention away from her son's transgressions and the credible allegations against him, and instead pointing fingers at the media. How dare you talk about this former Fox News host and potential future defense secretary, knowing full damn well that if the shoe were on the other foot, Penelope Hegseth, Steve Ducey, Pete Hegseth, and the others wouldn't care. They just don't like the fact that they are featuring in a particularly scandalous story. So Again, pretty poor performance by Penelope's part, but we've got some additional clips as well.
Right.
And I think the senators need to listen.
Do you worry, Penny, though, that Donald Trump's trying to hit the ground running?
Of course.
In less than 50 days, and the Pete Hegseth stuff has become a distraction?
To a degree, but I think it can be overcome. I think people need to listen to him, get to know him, not the Pete from 7 years ago, but the Pete of today.
Right. During the confirmation hearings coming up, if Pete continues with this nomination process, you might be called. Would you testify in front of Congress?
I don't have an answer to that right now, Steve. I hadn't thought about that.
What about
these?
Right.
And I think
you probably should be thinking about that now that you're doing a media tour, because Democrats are absolutely going to try to get you to testify, and certainly under oath, about your son. Again, just thinking about these, why would you agree to participate in this and not have been briefed or not have considered the potential implications? You are now putting yourself even further into the public spotlight, insisting on the moral character, the moral, pristine quality of your son. Well, you may have to testify to that fact under oath. And the fact that she's like, the fact that the answer isn't an enthusiastic yes, of course, I don't say necessarily damns Pete Hegseth, but it does undermine the strength of your statements. You're saying these things while not under oath on a sympathetic news network in front of a sympathetic audience. Oh, my boy, my baby boy, you need to listen to him. Don't listen to the media or my own words. You need to defer to Pete on this. I believe very strongly. Would you testify under oath? Well, okay, that's different. To me, that says something. It suggests that you are not quite so certain in the strength of your convictions or the certitude of your claims if you're not prepared to testify under oath. I'm not saying do it lightly, but again, it does suggest a contradiction that as long as you don't have to, operate under the pains and penalties of perjury, you are going to, advocate for your son to the strongest possible degree. But if there's a potential consequence involved, then you back away from it. Penelope, I think this interview might be doing ultimately more harm than good.
some of those attachments or descriptions are just not true, especially anymore.
It sounds like you're a little disillusioned. Have you lost trust in how things happen?
No, listen, I came to take on New York City, to take on the New York Times, to be a mother, a strong mother, a fighter.
What's your message to the New York Times?
I would say I don't think the way you operate it feels almost criminal when reporters call you and threaten you. I don't think a lot of people know that's the way they operate. And they are in it for the commission, for the money, and they don't care who they hurt, families, children. And I don't believe that is the right way to do things.
So again, not a threat, standard operating practice in the media. They're going to publish these stories if they're of public interest, regardless of the subject of the story wants them to or not. They're giving you an opportunity to give your version of events. Fox does this all the time. It's not just the New York Times, and she doesn't give a damn when Fox does it, or Newsmax, or others as well, the National Review, or Wall Street Journal, whoever it may be. She just doesn't understandably like being on the other end of it. Well, you were the one who wrote the email in the first place. You were the one who wrote these words. Again, we're not going to read the whole thing, but as a reminder, because we covered this in a previous video, text of the email that Pete Hegseth's mother sent him. I've tried to keep quiet about your character and behavior, but after listening to the way you made Samantha feel today, I can't stay silent. And as a woman and your mother, I feel I must speak out. You are an abuser of women. That's the ugly truth, and I have no respect for any man that belittles, lies, cheats, sleeps around, and uses women for his own power and ego. You are that man and have been for years, and as your mother, it pains me and embarrasses me to say that, but it's the sad, sad truth. I'm not a saint, far from it, so don't throw in that in my face, but your abuse over the years to women needs to be called out. And it goes on and on and on like this. Now, can Pete Hegseth have changed? Sure, it's entirely possible, but she should be leaning more into that, saying, listen, I said what I said. I am embarrassed, of course, that this has created some sort of public spectacle about my son. But I just want you to know, for various reasons, X, Y, and Z, I believe that Pete Hegseth has changed, and the man that he is today has the moral character to be the next defense secretary. I'm not saying that she has to disown her son. I'm not saying that there isn't a possibility for a road to redemption. That's not what I'm suggesting at all. But instead, she is trying to sweep her own assessment of her son under the rug, the credible allegations against Pete Hegseth, her son, as well, and she's excoriating the media and trying to make the New York Times as the villain here, when in fact it sounds like the villain of the story was her son. And she recognized that, according to the email. Now, again, we're probably going to do multiple videos about Pete Hegseth because this is a major story with multiple different vectors of updates. We've got updates involving Ron DeSantis and Lindsey Graham and other things as well. But it's worth noting that as a consequence of all of these things, according to the betting markets at least, Pete Hegseth's probability for confirmation has plummeted in 3 weeks.
Since Trump announced his plans to nominate the former Fox News anchor, a bunch of past allegations have surfaced of drunken misbehavior, sexual misconduct, and financial mismanagement of the veterans nonprofit that he once ran. CNN's Harry Enton has the numbers on how much has changed for that man and how fast it has changed for him. How have things shifted over the last weeks?
I mean, oh my. Chance that Pete Hegseth is confirmed as the defense secretary. You look 3 weeks ago, John Berman, very surprised by these stats. He had an 83% chance per the betting markets, tumbling down a drop of more than 70 percentage points. Holy Toledo, 12% now. I mean, Matt Gaetz, when he steps aside, still had more than a 30% chance of becoming the next attorney general.
Oh, wow.
Yikes. So according to the betting markets, Pete Hegseth has less of a chance to be confirmed as defense secretary than Matt Gaetz did when Matt Gaetz stepped aside. So again, that's another part of the story that we're going to discuss in a different video. But what I really want to focus on here is that, again, this anti-woke alpha man warrior, Pete Hegseth, who exudes masculinity of the MAGA conservative variety, had to run to his mother and beg her to go onto the Fox propaganda network to beg Donald Trump and the American people to please give him the job. Super pathetic stuff. It should be called out and mocked, and I imagine it will be, and I doubt that as a consequence of this interview, we're going to see these betting markets change meaningfully in a positive trajectory for Hegseth. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.